Okay, so my name's Jenn Cooper. I'm a reflexology practitioner in Australia, and also my business name is Focus on Feet. Some people would have noticed that on Facebook, and I'm very, very privileged and honoured to be hosting Sally Kay in Australia later this year. She's coming out obviously in October and November. So just a little bit of introduction about Sally before we get underway. So Sally Kay is a multi-award-winning reflexology practitioner, tutor and published researcher. Sally has developed Reflexology Lymph Drainage, RLD for short, from first principles and through extensive clinical practice. This innovative approach to reflexology has attracted national and international awards and widespread recognition. Sally has been a guest speaker at national and international conferences throughout the UK, Europe and America. She teaches RLD to reflexology practitioners from around the world and has published articles in professional journals which include International Therapist and Reflections. Clinical experience and further evidence from a growing body of case studies suggest RLD may be useful for clients with non-cancer related autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, allergies, migraine, and many other inflammatory conditions. So I'll just welcome Sally to the call. Sally, if you could just unmute yourself. I think you might have already done that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I've got my little earphones.
I can hear you. I can hear you clearly. If anyone can't hear clearly, just a hand up, but I'm sure everything is okay. So, Sally, first of all, could you tell us, the people on the call tonight are going to be reflexologists, so could you tell us a little bit about your background into reflexology itself?
Okay, so I first qualified in 2005, so I'm kind of relatively new to the reflexology world, but after experiencing reflexology myself and feeling so incredible, I was straight off to the local college. This is what I'm going to do, and to be honest, I haven't looked back. So when I first qualified, for about a year after that, I started working in cancer care at a local hospice with drop-in clinics, which was an amazing experience. But you never had a whole hour with someone. You only had about half an hour because they were drop-in. People didn't have appointments. So I developed a way of working with people where I would just adapt what I was doing to try and make the best difference to that person that I possibly could. So after about a year of that, I realized that I was dealing, with complex health problems, although it was a very supportive environment. And luckily, there was a BSc Honours degree course at the University in Cardiff in South Wales, near where I live. So as a very mature student, I signed up on that. And graduated, did that part-time so I could continue working in cancer care, and graduated in 2011 at the age of 50. So that's how I got into it. And that's also how the research started, because for the degree, at the end of it, you have to do a dissertation. And at the hospice, I was seeing a lot of patients who had lymphedema following breast cancer. So there was a high incidence rate in this particular area. And patients used to say, well, I don't suppose you can do anything for my arm, can you? There was another therapist there who was doing manual lymph drainage massage, which I understood because I've also done other therapy modality, advanced massage and aromatherapy and things, although I only ever really, really wanted to do reflexology. And so I understood how MLD, manual lymph drainage, worked, but I wasn't qualified or insured to do it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to see if I apply the principle of that to the lymphatic reflexes on the feet. And working with the patients, they started to say, I can feel that moving, or, oh, look, my blouse is a bit looser, or, oh, look at my watch. And so here was something that you could measure, a measurable change. And there isn't much that can be done for people who've got lymphedema. It's a question of managing it. There is no cure. But there's also no miracle drug for it. So we're not treading on the toes of any drug companies. anyway, so I went and trained how to measure the volume of the arm, which is using a standardized set of measurements that the Lymphedema service use. So we're meeting with the healthcare providers on a like-for-like basis. For the research, I had to go through NHS ethics, which was a huge undertaking. Probably more work than the last year of the degree itself. You know, I got there. Anyway, the paper, the research paper was it's the first one. There were 6 participants, and everybody lost a significant amount of fluid from the arm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's kind of.
So that's your background into reflexology, and obviously, you know, like many of us, we move into certain directions, don't we? That either come to us or we feel drawn to, and obviously you were drawn to work in cancer care. And I know Marie Duggan came out a couple of years ago and actually lived in Australia for a while and very much involved in cancer care in the UK. And I believe you know Marie quite well.
In the UK, yes, yeah.
Fantastic. And so the story behind developing the RLD technique, can you explain a little bit about how that supports the theory of reflexology? Because that's what we're interested in. We're interested in the fact that we're reflexologists and we love the modality that we're working with. So you could just explain a little bit about how RLD supports the reflexology modality.
So because we isolate the lymphatic reflexes and work them in the same sequence as manual lymph drainage will be worked on the body, we're getting similar results. So for me, that supports the idea that if you work that area, or whichever area it is, if you work the lymphatic reflexes in the same order, that you're getting the same results as if you're working on the body. And what patients say is that they like this because they only have to take their shoes and socks off.
Yeah.
So after invasive surgery, to be able to only take your shoes and socks off and get a measurable difference in the swelling of the arm, which makes a big difference to quality of.
It's very much that non-invasive, isn't it? That non-invasive treatment that they can experience.
The thing is, as reflexologists, we know it works. We all know, we all love it, we all know it works, but nobody really understands the mechanism of action, and I certainly don't. But until we do, it's very difficult to prove.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skeptical, healthcare professionals, but we've built on this research. So because the first piece was showed very promising results, I presented a research abstract to a conference in 2012, and from there other reflexologists started saying, can you teach us this? How do you do it? But also the university applied to a Welsh cancer charity, and we were awarded £12,500 to do some more research. Now, if anybody wants to go onto the website afterwards, reflexologylymphdrainage.co.uk.
I might put that in the chat box actually, so we can see that.
Okay, well, one of the headings says research, and so all the research abstracts to date, you can find links there. So this second paper was published. It was, instead of, I just used 6 participants in my study, this was 26 participants, and again, the results are very, very similar. So there's now even more research going on using thermal imaging, which is very, very exciting.
That is exciting.
It is just mind-blowing to actually watch. And this time we've got 2 groups. One, all the participants have got breast cancer-related lymphedema in one arm. One group are having RLD as the protocol, and the other group are having a more generic reflexology treatment, working everything and not sort of isolating. And so we'll be able to compare the difference between.
That's great. Well, that is a great way of doing that, isn't it? Because I understand a little bit about thermography and the thermal imaging, and you can actually, it's a visible thing that you can actually see.
It is just blows me away. But obviously that study's ongoing at the moment, so we're not able to share the details with you. But this started off being about breast cancer related lymphedema, and it really does make a wonderful difference to quality of life as well. And people usually ask, well, how long does it last?
It's a good question.
Yeah, people often ask that, because it isn't a cure-all. But what we find is that it's lasting quite well. And this could be because it's actually enabling people to maybe do their exercises, or they feel better in themselves, so they maybe join a gym. You know, I've heard all kinds of stories.
Yeah, so overall, it's overall better for their health, and they feel better within themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so just when you're talking about that with the study that's ongoing, how many sessions are they looking at within that study for one full session?
For like my study. So they've replicated, each time we've done more research, they've replicated that because it's giving us a measurable outcome.
Fantastic.
Which is the exciting part. But what we've found, the more people who are doing, in the UK, I've trained now about 1,000 people, as well as trained some people in Europe and in America and Canada, and somebody even flew in from South Africa to do the training in the UK.
That's actually one of my next questions. So was just to find out where. So you've been teaching the RLD technique now for a couple of how many years?
Years. The first course was towards the end of 2012.
Okay.
So,
5 years. So in which countries now do you think the RLD technique has moved to?
It's throughout the UK. It's in Ireland, Holland. I was recently at a conference in Switzerland where I ran a big workshop for 48 reflexologists. People have travelled from other countries to come on the course. Last year I was teaching in Toronto and in Seattle. And in fact, a couple of people have also come from the US to do the training because they missed the training while I was in America.
Wonderful. So is the training always done over a two-day workshop, or was there further work to do from that?
After the workshop, there's a case study to be done, but it's not a big deal. It's one case study. It doesn't have to be a client with lymphedema, because I was just coming on to that. What we've found is this is like a byproduct, if you like. People with other autoimmune inflammatory conditions are getting huge improvements to these conditions when they have RLD. So certainly in the UK, there's an increase in the number of autoimmune conditions, a lot of inflammation in the body, fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis, and also inflammatory skin conditions. You know, so okay. Sorry, the screen suddenly did something.
Yeah, it did.
And so we're realizing that by isolating the lymphatic reflexes, it's making a difference to, seems to be having a difference to the immune system and the body's own anti-inflammatory response.
So really, it's a technique that a qualified reflexologist, adding the RLD technique to what they already have, they would be able to use that with so many different clients that they're actually already seeing.
Yes, they would, yeah. And some people who've done the training just end up integrating it into what they're doing.
Okay.
There's a place for that. Some people, depending where they're working, what they're doing, are actually initiating their own small studies. So particularly, and I don't know how reflexology is funded in Australia. Do most people, are you paid for it, or are you expected to do it voluntarily?
Look, both. Obviously, some people are definitely in a volunteer capacity, but mostly in Australia, people not very many reflexologists work full-time. Most would be working in a part-time capacity, but in Australia, we do have health fund providers that actually give a rebate for reflexology back to the client. So that's something that reflexology is accepted through our health fund system here. Right,
okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say there is that if you're working in a charity sector where, you know, people are always competing for funds to fund complementary therapies, this will give you you could do your own study. So from the 2 days training, you would get enough to do your own study. You learn how to do the measuring and calculate the differences and use other standardized outcome measures. So very often, if you can do a little positive pilot study, you can then apply for funding based on the results that you can demonstrate.
Wow.
That's another good thing about this.
Fantastic. So with you were coming to Australia to teach the RLD in Brisbane and Melbourne, and obviously the people that come into those workshops would be qualified reflexologists. Is that correct?
Yes, you need to be a qualified reflexologist to take on this course. It's full on. It's a very, very full 2 days. The first day we do, the first session is theory. And between coffee break and lunchtime, we learn how to measure and calculate the volume of the arm. And then in the afternoon, it's demonstration followed by practical for the rest of the afternoon. The second day is reflection and a little bit more theory first thing in the morning, then demonstration after coffee. So 3/4 of the day of the second day is all practical.
Wonderful.
And then
a lot of reflexologists love to be able to, they come into a 2-day workshop, not only with theory, but also be able to walk away and feel, and do you feel that they would be experienced enough in the RLD technique to be able to keep going?
Yeah, because obviously I give out feedback forms to the training courses, and feedback is just incredible. So I'm grateful to everybody who comes on the course. And
I know, Sally, you're definitely, because you're on Facebook, I know you're definitely a person who supports your practitioners with this technique, and you support them in, if they have any questions or anything they need. So do you feel the same thing would happen in Australia here? Because this is your first time to Australia. So it's our first time learning the RLD technique from you. So it's just, it's going to be an amazing and a wonderful experience. So just talking about the follow-up that would happen from there.
Okay, so follow-up is you'd be surprised what an intensive 2 days this is. I feel it's complete. It gives you enough to go forward and use it immediately. And very often you find after day 1, when you've all given and received a treatment, when you come back the following morning, many reflexologists are saying, I've woken up this morning and my knee's not aching, or, oh, look, the swelling's gone down, because we all have our sort of aches and pains and things. And so that first session of the second day, when people are feeding back, many, many reflexologists are experiencing things after RLD for themselves, which they then share, which they haven't experienced before. Something new is happening. So that validates it for them. You have to feel these things for yourself in order to
that's right. So you need to have your experience yourself, and you will get, obviously over that weekend, you'll get to perhaps swap with different people, work with other practitioners, and have your own experience of what's happening, and then you'll be able to transfer that information back to your clients.
Yes, that's right. So afterwards, something that I feel is very important is differentiating between RLD as a very specific protocol, because I know this gives measurable results, and just a more generic reflexology. Because if somebody's had breast cancer and lymphedema, they may be considered vulnerable. They might be online looking for a miracle cure, and because nobody told them they were going to get stuck with this lymphedema, and it's quite debilitating. And they read somewhere, oh, look, I read reflexology is good for lymphedema. Mm-hmm. But then if they went somewhere and it didn't work, that would be bad for that person. It would also be bad for reflexology. Now, I know this works. So by having a Find a Therapist page on the website, people can at least find their way to somebody who's done the training and who will be able to help them with that. So that's the reason that I ask everybody for a case study. So
and then what happens from there is that I've noticed on your website you have a list of the countries that are currently have the RLD practitioners with the technique. I noticed that New Zealand is on there.
Yes.
Australia is obviously yet to be on there.
There is one person in Australia that is on there. Somebody who trained in the UK with me before she moved to Australia.
Oh, okay.
And the 2 people in New Zealand also trained with me in the UK before they went to live in New Zealand.
Okay, fantastic.
So it's for me, it's like a magic carpet ride. And, that's the only way I can explain it, really.
Yeah, that's great. So, Sally, what we're just winding up with the interview part, and then there's a few questions that have come up in the chat box, and then I might also just open it up to people if they'd like to comment or ask a question. But what are you looking forward to the most coming to Australia? This is your first visit here, and you're going to spend a little bit of time getting to know our country as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can hardly believe I'm coming. I'm very excited, and particularly that Reflexology is bringing me there, and to have this opportunity to meet other reflexologists is an incredible experience, because we all do a great job and we all do it differently, and yet it still works, which is fascinating. So I'm always interested to meet like-minded reflexologists anywhere.
That's great. Wonderful. Now, I've got 2 questions here. First question's from Annette McCarthy, who's on the call tonight. She's asking, to what level is the RLD technique known and or accepted in Australia? Well, do you want to answer that, or?
Well, I mean, it isn't really in Australia. There's just one person there at the moment who I believe she integrates it in part of her practice. But certainly with peer-reviewed published research, which we have, the first paper that you can have the link to the abstract from the website was the quantitative paper. So that's your facts and figures. Yes. But we will be publishing another paper from that, the qualitative, so people's words and experience, and it's very, very powerful. So as more research is published, you as reflexologists will be able to say, I can do that.
Yep.
I know that technique, I've learned that technique.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I think that when somewhere starts accepting this as a treatment, then it's going to snowball, because...
Yes. And we have people over here. We do have the practitioner I was hoping would come on the call tonight is not here tonight, but we do have a couple of practitioners who are currently working in hospitals and cancer care clinics. So I know they're very eager to learn this and to be able to take that back and be able to work with those patients there. So one other question, this is a very good question. How long is a full session of RLD?
Well, it's 30 to 40 minutes. So it's something that you can integrate into what you're doing. You can just use some of the reflexes if appropriate in your work, or you can give a set treatment. So the only thing that takes a little bit of time difference is I finish with linking, and depending on the recipient, if they're still feeling stuff, I hold the link until it stops. So, there's a slight, few minutes difference at the end. Okay.
Great. And another question, will Sally be bringing her charts with her to Australia?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll be posting a pack of stuff to Jenn before I come, because I'm actually I've been invited to go and speak at the ICR conference in Taiwan. So I'm going there first and then travelling on to Australia.
Great. Another question, Cordy. Can you use RLD for swollen legs?
Yes, you can. So on the second day of the training, we adapt the protocol for legs and other conditions. So certainly in the UK, there's an increase in sort of head and neck cancers. So people get sort of swelling here. So I teach how to adapt it depending where in the body the swelling is. But we also talk about how you would use it in your practice and as part of the people with sort of rheumatoid arthritis or any other sort of inflammation going on in the body.
Right. And Anne is saying, I was a volunteer at Peter Mac Cancer Centre, which is in Melbourne, and I've made sure they know we're going to be trained in this technique.
Yeah.
So that's great. How does it work on a melanoma on the foot? Can we work it on the hand?
Yes, you also get hand charts of how to work the hand. It's a very inclusive course. You get all the material that you need. It's all professionally printed. It's evolved and developed into a piece of work that I'm really, really proud of.
Fantastic, and that will all come with you as well. 2 other questions from Connie Hardy. Thyroid issues are huge at the moment. Have you found it helps with this autoimmune issue?
Well, yes. Just one that comes to mind, one of the reflexologists had thyroid issues, and the next day she was all sort of, oh my goodness, I can't believe what this has done here. So yes, yeah, I mean, I know I sound evangelical about it, but if you want to interact on the Facebook group, there's a really great group. So you'll hear stories from other people, not just me.
That's the RLD Facebook group, is it?
Yeah, Reflexology Lymph Drainage. It's an open Facebook group. Right. There are a lot of case studies and feedback and information and people sharing. It's a really good forum.
Right. You know, thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. This is from Yin, and she has a question about, does it work for Parkinson's and motor neuron disease? Okay.
I personally haven't got a lot of experience with, working with those diseases, but I have had case studies from people where there has been a positive improvement. Now, so I haven't really got lots of experience that myself, but also these conditions. I always believe you have to take each person, each case individually, and you need to manage expectations, because somebody might be very acute, sort of towards end of life, and somebody might just be at the beginning of diagnosis. So I think when we work, it's about managing expectations.
Great answer. Just before we go on to any other questions, I'll just go over the actual dates for the workshops in Australia. So Brisbane workshop is the 28th and 29th of October. It's set in a really lovely location down by the water, down by the bay in Brisbane. I know it's a place that Sally's going to love staying and teaching. And then in Melbourne, we have the 11th and 12th of November, and that's in Balwyn, at the Balwyn Community Centre. And Anne, who's on the call tonight, is going to help host the Melbourne event. So that's exciting. That's wonderful. And of course, from there, Sally, you then fly over to, you spend a little bit of time here and then you fly over to Auckland. And there's a lady, Karen Middleton, who's organising the Auckland trip. So we've got one more question. It's from Anne, and she's asking about cerebral palsy.
Okay. I don't think I've had any case studies about that. But certainly I would try. I'm one for trying. I think if you can justify why you're doing so, I'm doing this because it might help that, understanding the pathology of what's going on with any condition that presents to you, I think helps you adapt your reflexology for that person.
Right. All the dogs have just started barking. So
I could hear the dustman coming down the road.
We're almost on cue, isn't it? So we might just does anyone else have a question that you'd like to ask? Because if you do, I have everyone muted at the moment, but if you would like to just ask a question, we've got about 3 minutes left that we can do that. And if you would like to do that, you would just need to unmute yourself or raise your hand and I can do it for you. But if you would like to ask a question of Sally before we wind up, if there's anything I haven't covered or Sally hasn't covered that you need to make sure that we speak about. Is anyone?
Yes.
You look like you've taken your microphone.
Mute off.
Yeah,
yes.
I can hear you. Ask your question.
I got your DVD, Sally.
Yeah.
And just wondering, is it necessary to do the 3 steps?
You do the 3 feet
yes.
when somebody's got lymphedema in one arm. So because manual lymph drainage starts on the good side,
yes.
then you work the other side, and then you need to return to the good side to clear it. So that was me mirroring the MLD principles onto the feet.
Okay. So you can't just do right and left only?
Yes, if you're treating somebody who's got an autoimmune condition, if you're just building it into your practice, yes, you can just do 2 feet. But if somebody's got lymphedema, you want to empty the good side to create a space. Then you encourage the compromised side to drain towards the nearest functioning group of lymph nodes. Then you need to empty those again.
So when I do the right one, do I do the link or do I do the link last?
No, linking is at the end.
The end, okay.
If you're starting with the right, left, right, and then finish with
the linking.
Okay,
thank you.
Lynn's coming to the Melbourne workshop, so that will be...
Yes, looking forward to it. It's a good result from it. Yes.
Can we have an indication of people who are on the call tonight? If you put your hand up if you're coming to Brisbane or Melbourne, either one. And I know there are a number of people that were coming on, and we've got a few people with their videos turned off, but I'm sure they're coming along as well. Well, that's fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Anybody would like to ask any further questions or something that we need to talk about? Okay, the early bird price, Sally, we must mention that very quickly. We're going to extend the early bird price for both the workshops until the end of July. So that's a big announcement tonight. Let Sally know there's a lot of payments that happen for reflexologists at this time of the year with our membership fees and insurance. So we've extended the early bird price to the end of July, which means you can still make a deposit and then pay the balance. Or you can actually pay it in full. So we've just extended the time on that just to give people a little bit more leeway with things. And Connie would like to say a big thank you to Sally and myself for having this tonight. It's been a wonderful experience. Sally, I'm so pleased we've been able to have this organised. We've been months, haven't we, in the planning of the trip to Australia, and it's just been, for me, it's just been such an honour that you're coming and everything's happening, and tonight was just a wonderful experience to bring people together on this call.
Thank you, Jen, for making this happen. I have to say that, because you can't do this on your own. We need help and support. And many of us work on our own, so it's great to be able to connect with each other as well. Sure. Thank you, Jen. Now,
Norma, you've just raised your hand. Are you wanting to ask a question? We've got about a minute left. Do you want me to unmute you?
Not long turned in, and I'm looking forward to actually booking for Sally's workshop. So I just wanted to hear what she had to say. So no, thank you. That's about it for tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Norma. Fantastic.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Sally.
I'm just going to unmute everyone, and everyone can say a big, bye, and we'll see you soon in Australia. Ready?
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sally.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.